Now, Sierra Leone's economy is projected to recover from the COVID-19 contraction, with real GDP expected to rebound by 3.0% in 2021, an upward revision of 0.8 percentage point relative to the 2020 forecast, according to the new World Bank Sierra Leone Economic Update launched earlier this month. However, trends in the economic growth movement seem to be moving in the opposite direction, with growing inflation rate of the leone against the dollar and the increasing price of commodities like petroleum products, which in turn affect other goods and services. The World Bank report also provides several reform priorities for government consideration, including building up the response to the COVID-19 pandemic by rolling out a strong vaccination program and carrying out broad-based macroeconomic reforms to support a quick economic recovery. Another World Bank report notes that government's structural reform agenda should focus on measures to improve the business environment, digitize the economy, strengthen governance and institutions, expand agricultural productivity, including fishing, and encourage agribusiness, promote value addition in manufacturing and mining, and improve human capital to make the country attractive to both domestic and foreign investors. So tonight we ask, why do things seem to be taking a turn for the worse? What is the government doing wrong? What can be done to make the life of the average Sierra Leonean better? My name is Samuel Wise-Bangre, and this is AYV on Sunday. Right, good evening and a warm welcome to AYV on Sunday on Channel 33 on TV and on Radio FM 101.7. On my panel this evening, I have the Minister of Trade and Industry, Engineer Inga Edwards-Sandi. Good evening and welcome to the show. All right, I have a representative from the Coalition for Progressive Political Parties. She's the chairperson for the Unity Party and the 2018 presidential candidate of the Unity Party, Femi Claudius Cole. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Consortium, Samuel.
Forgive me. The Consortium of Progressive Political Parties. All right. I have with me the National Coordinator for Budget Advocacy Network, Abubakar Kamara. Abubakar, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Samuel, and good evening, Sierra Leonean.
All right. I also have, as always, Valnora Edwin, the champion for good governance campaigns. Good evening and welcome, Val.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.
All right. And to you watching or listening, remember you can always participate in the conversation through our Facebook page. You can find us at the Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page, and you can phone in when we open the call line later. And the number for you to do so is +232 30 622 766, +232 30 622 766. I'm going to start off the conversation with you, Bakar, for obvious reasons. You are one of two organizations that put out a press statement attributing what is ongoing to the issue of shipment and foreign affairs. So first off, give us a baseline as to how were you able to come to terms and attribute the current economic trend, especially with the spike in the hike in commodity prices and investment and all of that, linking them to shipment and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you. Firstly, bread is not the only commodity that has gone up. A lot of issues, a lot of stuff have gone up.
Right.
Cement is an example. We saw in 1 week, cement go up from 85 to over 100,000. Our intervention is based on the fact that bread is a staple food, but the intervention we are calling on will not only attempt to address the increase in price of bread, but also all other issues that are actually being shipped. If you look at our country, almost everything is being imported. We are not producing much. And as a network, again as IGR, we are concerned about the plight of Sierra Leonean. especially when it comes to those commodities that every Sierra Leonean, in one way or other, has to use that particular commodity, and that has to do bread. So the bread issue we took on is just an entry point to address the broader issues around increasing price. But we also come down to the fact that there are internal factors.
Which are?
And there are external factors.
Let's talk about the internal factors.
The minister will hear, the minister of Studies here will explain more about that.
Right.
Our focus on this press release was to look at those deep-rooted problems that has been lying down for years, for which action have not been taken. We will not be seeing movement in terms of how government can address those issues from a broader perspective so that we can ensure that we start to stabilize, especially those items that are actually being imported. And one of the issues we picked up upon discussing with several experts around the field is the fact that we are still placed as high-risk countries since the war for sheep coming to Sierra Leone. For us, we were shocked. Over 20 years, when the war finished, we saw several reports that shows that Africa were 4th, the world were 46. So the question is, what was this government and previous government doing to ensure that they clean up that image, to ensure that they remove Sierra Leone from that high-risk country?
So it was not safe for people to ship to Sierra Leone. It was not safe. That's what you're saying.
You know, when ships are coming, they always insure their ship.
Right.
And of course, in the insurance world, you pay more because of the risks of that particular country you are going. So we still have that ban that it's high risk. And if you are doing business, once there is a risk, you increase the cost.
Is that as a result of security concerns? The risk, I mean, Sierra Leone placed among...
That risk was placed on Sierra Leone when we were in the war.
Right.
And now it's 20 years. What has this government and previous government doing to ensure that that particular status on us is actually being removed? So we said, let's start to call government to book so that they start to look at this issue to ensure that that status is being removed. Because if you look at, as I stated earlier, almost everything is being imported. And when there is a high risk, the insurance will high, and of course the shipping company will translate that into their customers. And of course the business people will definitely translate that to the ordinary people. That's one issue. Nevertheless, there are internal factors. I'm glad the minister is here, even in terms of the attitude of the business people, again, how government try to address some of those issues. The other point we looked at is we looked at data in terms of trend for freight. Since COVID struck, we started to see freight to Sierra Leone going up. And for now, the freight has gone up by more than 300%, which definitely will impact. So even though the government of Sierra Leone...
Is that something the government of Sierra Leone can influence?
In one way or the other, when you look at freight, there are other issues we have to look at. For example, we do not have any ship coming to Sierra Leone under Sierra Leone's name.
Right.
If we have a ship coming under Sierra Leone's name, that will help to reduce the cost because you are coming to your home countries. Mind you, those ships coming to Sierra Leone, they have to go through a whole lot of destinations. So even though, for example, in the case of bread, there is now a zero duty on flour products coming to Sierra Leone. Import GST have been slashed down from 15% to 0. But yet still, we see the price of goods and services going up. And of course, these external factors, we want to see how government can actually intervene, ensuring that they try to address some of these external factors. Again, let's look at the broader perspectives in terms of why are things continuously going up. Let me give you an example, the issue of cement. We saw cement move within a week from 85 to 120,000 units. In fact, I was doing some small construction. When I bought the cement 85, and then within 4 days, 5 days, when I asked, I was shocked. In fact, I thought the boy wanted to dupe me, except when I went to the shop. But it's reality. There is no doubt around that. And that is creating hardship on the people of Sierra Leone. And mind you, all of these commodities in Sierra Leone, they are interrelated. If I'm selling cement, I have to buy bread to eat. So all those costs will be transferring from one another to another. So one of the things we call for is, one, we want to see how we can push the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, to actually start to engage those international bodies to remove the status of us being high-risk country for ship coming to Sierra Leone. I mean, so they need to me, I see at this particular point in time, they need to take that as a priority and push that one forward. Secondly, we have our shipping agency, Sierra Leone National Shipping Agency, which is responsible for overall shipments, including bringing ship to operate in Sierra Leone. So we want to see how they can actually work with other shipping agencies to have ship that are coming under the name of Sierra Leone, not just for the trawler. Of course, we know the trawlers. We have a whole lot of trawlers operating under the name of Sierra Leone, that flag of unity. So we also want to see that particular aspect being translated into ship bringing commodities into Sierra Leone. And of course, Minister of Finance to continue, because one of the things we started looking at was why we have this import duty-free, GST-free, but yet still the price keep on going. But then we'll notice that there are also another external factors. So we want the Minister of Finance to still maintain that particular aspect. But broadly, we are concerned about how the price of goods and services are going up, because it's always continue to create a whole lot of hardship on the ordinary Israeli.
If you just quickly to highlight some of the internal factors responsible for what we're witnessing, what would they be?
I think we'll spend the whole day here discussing that. Firstly, let's look at the attitude of the business people. The rate at which price of goods and services is going on. For example, cement, within 5 days, it jumped from this point to this point. Of course, again, they are doing that in anticipation of the price that has gone up somewhere else. So, for example, if the freight goes up internationally, say by 10 or 50%, as soon as it goes up, even without those goods coming in, they will have to affect those prices on their goods on the ground here. Of course, you also have to look at, they have to convert those resources to go back and buy now at that and ship goods at that particular price. So we have to see, we have to look at how government can come in to actually cushion, especially those essential goods. At this particular point in time, this is where we might want to see government really come in to cushion the hardship. Not all, but like those real commodities that every Sierra Leonean come in contact with. Government should make some sacrifice here, either in the form of indirect subsidies, either in the form of having some bilateral agreement, but there should be some sacrifice on the side of government to ensure that the ordinary citizen do not suffer much because of those international factors.
All right.
I agree that there are international factors, but government should not allow
the external
all of those international factors to be just absorbed by the ordinary citizen. As it is right now, the ordinary citizen, we are the one absorbing all of those hardship because of those factors.
All right. Before I come to the women who would have to paint us a picture of the current trend, let me bring in the minute. You've listened to the submission of Bakar, and they are concerned there are external factors as well as internal factors responsible for the current trend of things in Sierra Leone. And he spoke about prices being increased on products like cement, of course, petroleum products, wheat flour, and things like that. And those things are adversely affecting us, the ordinary Sierra Leoneans. And there's this news I read about shutting down or suspending the operation of a cement factory because of trying to undermine government's effort in creating some good environment amidst the economic crisis. Take us through some of those factors that are responsible, firstly, for the issues of petroleum products, cement, wheat flour importation, and things like that.
Oh, thank you very much, Samuel. I am happy that we're having this conversation, and Abubakar has done well to beam light on some of the issues that are actually driving prices of commodities. At the outset of COVID, I think the focus has been, what do we do as a country to prevent the spread? We also looked at what will be the impact of the availability of essential commodities in the market, knowing that some countries are going to be shutting down their borders. So you see that the broader response we did was around, first of all, looking at how we control the spread of the disease. We looked at what we do, what's economic stimulus package we could bring, and that was when we were able to have the Bank of Sierra Leone provide a $50 million package for businesses that were importing into the country. So the loan was given to them, very, very soft loan, very interesting interest rate. And you saw us go through that first phase. But you've seen that COVID has impacted too many other things. One, we're talking about freights. Like Abubakar mentioned, Sierra Leone is still listed as a high risk. You want to ask yourself, is it because of security or is it because of some other factors? It's a blend. Security is one. Two, you take a look at how easy accessibility is to our port. How long will ships take to come and dock, and how long will they take to go out? We've seen development in the expansion of the port, but it's still not where it should be for ships to be coming in easily and the turnaround time really getting better. So you can see, but it's not only affecting Sierra Leone, it's affecting the whole of West Africa. First of all, like Abubakar mentioned, Sierra Leone does not have any shape, or we do not have any line, and even within West Africa, we do not have. Part of what we're planning for in the Continental Free Trade Agreement, which we've already started, is to see how Africa tries to strengthen its logistics capability so that, we can find ways of really reducing or mitigating the shocks, external shocks. But take a look at what has happened from the outset of COVID. Freight, for instance, for cement was around $20 from Turkey to Sierra Leone. It has been going up steadily, like Abubakar mentioned. Today, it's $70 per metric ton. So 1 metric ton is 20 bags of cement. So if you have to pay, in fact, it's even more than the cost of cement in Turkey. The cost of cement, be it loosed or packed, is between $45 to $50. So bringing packed cement into Sierra Leone, $50 for metric ton, that's the cost, and $70 for the freight. Put together, it's $120. You're talking about it ranging between $110 to $120. So in actual fact, just removing the cement, buying it and bringing it to the dock will cost you, if you do the conversion, around 66,000 yuans currently. So you have to pay for port handling. For cement, we're still paying duty. You have to pay GST, and then you have to pay transportation, you have to pay for storage, and that is really what has driven the price of cement particularly. Take petroleum products. Well, it has not been the same with all commodities. While freight has been going up, but for petroleum products, it's actually the very cost, the plats of the refined product that has been going up. Currently, it stands between $600 and something to $715 per metric ton of refined petroleum product. I hear the conversation go on. A lot of people just look at crude oil, or the price of crude oil, which has even gone up, has been going up, and now it's around between $70,000 to $75,000 per metric ton. But it's not crude oil we are consuming. We're actually going to take the crude oil. It has to be refined before we consume the products like petrol. Of course, we do not refine here. So these are all the issues. So take a look at what is happening with even petrol. Petrol in Guinea, in Ghana, in the Gambia. If you look at the cost, it's about 12,000 yuans. It's only in Sierra Leone that we've been able to manage. We've brought in a number of interventions to see how we keep maintaining it at a level that is not really squeezing as it's squeezing in other countries. If you go to Guinea, as I speak to you, the cost of a liter of petrol is around 12,000 plus. So these are some of the facts. Take rice. The cost of rice has been going up, but also the freight has been going up. It has been going up from, imagine, prior to COVID, around $80. Now it stands at $180 per metric ton. You take, for instance, the other goods that come in containers. It's not only that there has been scarcity of containers globally, but the cost of a container has also been increasing.
Can I just quickly ask you this question? When the issues of freight costs are discussed, are we called around the table? I mean, the question is, can Sierra Leone influence things like that?
These are things which are actually beyond our control. There are interventions we could have done long ago to have fixed it. You cannot do it immediately now. There are interventions you can do actually within the medium to long term to see how, as a country or within the region or even at the continental level, what we can do to ensure that the spike in freights can actually be controlled. But as it is, it's not only Sierra Leone that's facing that. It's Ghana, it's Guinea, it's Gambia. Everybody is seeing this thing happen. If you call the businesses, I wish we had a business representative here. They would tell you that, for instance, a 20-feet container that was costing between $2,000 to $3,000 is now costing more than $7,000 to bring to Sierra Leone. And it's not only Sierra Leone, it's the same with all other countries within the sub-region. So it's really biting. And as a government, we are seeing that this is one of the key drivers. Look at what we did for flour. I mean, we all know that for far too long, there has not been duty or even GST on rice. We also had the same consideration at the end of last year to see how in the 2021 budget, we also try to look at flour, which is where bread comes from, as a staple food. So what we did was, in that financial year budget, we tried to ensure that we were able to remove GST on flour. And if you can see, while flour here, the wholesale price is $285,000, even when freight has been going up. If you check the wholesale price of flour in Guinea is $320. Sorry, 320 leons, the equivalent. So these are some of the things you can see that, yes, it's getting difficult for our people, and we are also concerned. It's getting difficult, it's getting tough. And I tell you, the key drivers, there is no secret about it. The cost of the very goods, like he mentioned, we are not producing much. The Ministry of Trade and Industry over the years had only focused on trade.
I was just going to ask, I mean, what are we looking at? Because over the time, when you talk about the Ministry of Trade, it's about trade, the aspect of industrialization has always been missing. So what are we looking at?
It has been like that. And when I took over, that's one very area I looked at. And we started taking a look at what we can do broadly. First, we're entering in a couple of markets. You have the ECOWAS trade liberalization that allows companies within West Africa to produce and sell to other countries. I mean, you can only benefit from that if you're actually producing. We have the continental free trade area that's going to allow countries within the continent to be able to produce and sell to other countries. But we have not done over the years much around industry. You can see what has been happening over the years. A number of industries shutting down. We had very, very good industries doing well in the country. But over the years, well, maybe you can attribute it to the war and in some other cases, the lack of investment, the loss of trust in the country. So you can see that a number of industries have been shutting down. So when I took over, that aspect was not very active. So what have we done? A very old industry policy is in the process of review. And we're looking also at a couple of other interventions, like what we can do to really formalize, because you can have all of these things in place, but you really need to have certain frameworks that can support the growth of industries. We have now done a draft of the Special Economic Zone policy, and we're going to have a legislation that should kick that off, which is going to create specific areas where industries are going to be created. What are we looking at? We're looking at, one, light manufacturing. If you take a look at the World Bank report, they can tell you also that the contribution of industry to GDP has increased for the last 2 years. When the president took over in his first address to Parliament, he mentioned it, that industry was only, or manufacturing was only contributing 2% to GDP. Today, in the last World Bank report, it's now between 8% to 10%. So you have seen that we've done a couple of things. What have we done? We've looked at, while we're planning to do all of the special economic zone and bring in the legislation, we've been signing agreements that support industry growth. We've seen a couple of agreements that we've signed.
What are they?
Strategic ones.
Yeah.
We've done 2 agreements with vegetable oil producing companies. And today, while other West African countries are actually struggling with vegetable oil, Sierra Leone, especially with Socfin that's producing palm oil, we have 2 agreements we did with Kisi Oil and Dulax. Dulax are now actually manufacturing the paddy vegetable oil. And you can see that it's sufficient in the market. The price is better in Sierra Leone compared to the Gambia or compared to Guinea. In fact, the last time I went to the Gambia, part of the bilateral discussions we had with the government there was to see how Sierra Leone can support the Gambia with the export of our paddy oil, vegetable oil. So that's 2. We've looked at the petroleum sector, the downstream, because we're not really focusing on the upstream. We've not yet got any information about how much of crude oil we have. So we're looking at the downstream, that is actually the storage and retail of
the refined products.
The refined products. And what we did was to look at a very critical infrastructure we had, the oil refinery. Prior to our coming, a number of people were contending, oh, we own this, we own this. We came, we requested the Ministry of Justice to give us an opinion on the ownership. It was government, so we took it back. And then we got an agreement with the company, the APP, which has now republished all of those old tanks. We could have done a refinery, but taking a look at the nature, the current state of that piece of property, I mean, previous governments have even given part of it to other companies like the Kisi oil industry to establish its factory. You cannot actually do, it's no longer suitable for a refinery. So we have given it to the APP that has really refurbished the entire tank storage there, which has increased the capacity of this country to double its storage for petroleum products.
For just the all petroleum products?
It is there, and government has a share.
Right.
Of course, part of the storage belongs to government. So what is that going to do? The fact that we've done that, you've seen, of course, you must have heard of the news between MP and APP and what government is doing. That property also, which MP is sitting on. And we have to make this clear. The property which MP is sitting on is the property of the government of Sierra Leone. It was leased to them. And when we're planning a broader expansion of the sector, we can call on them. Although it's leased to them, we've done the engagements. We called them. We had to look into what we can do, because part of that property was where actually the pipelines of the oil refinery used to pass. So we brought them to the table. We held discussions. We talked about what we can do, because it was about connecting the old jetty that has been refurbished by APP to the refurbished tanks upstream, up the facility. So that has been something, but although we've gone far with that, it's going through, and APP is going to pass its pipeline. It's not going to cause any risk to the operations of NP, and we're very, very sure by the time we've done, let me tell you some more.
Quickly.
A good number of districts do not still have petrol stations. Are we just going to sit by, tie our hands around us, just depend on what NP and the other company that is existing, Leonco and Total. Total is even divesting. They are planning to leave this country. Are we just going to sit by and look at what we can do? I mean, for several reasons, they've not been doing too well with the retail. So are we going to sit down and see just these 2 companies? Are we not going to bring in more players to expand the market so that Falaba, Koinadugu can have filling stations? So that's why we're bringing in more people to come and occupy the market. So you can see that we've done 2 agreements with companies that are coming to recycle scrap metals. I mean, the construction is currently going on. I'm very, very sure these are things we should have done long, long ago. Okay. But you see that now everything is, if you take a look at even what is happening with rods. Rods are going up, not only because the freights are going up. We all know that iron ore price on the global market has increased. It was somewhere around $100 and something. Now it's around $220. So these are all the reasons. When you take a look at the mix, you realize that COVID has created so much impact, and it's really the main reason why a couple of these other factors, most of which are not under our control, that are actually driving the prices of essential commodities.
Stay with us. Before I bring in Valnora and And Femi, let me take this report where the Sierra Leone Association of Bakers earlier last week announced an increase in price for a loaf of bread by 500 leones. Now, but the Bakers Union, in another press release, refuted the claim of a price increase. However, Emmanuel Konjo, who is the director at the Ministry of Trade and Industry, denied claims by the Bakers Association that there has been no increase in flour. So let's join Salifu Chelno Kamara as he did a follow-up story on that.
The Association of Bakers says a bag of flour before the month of Ramadan was sold at 275,000 leones, but after the holy month, prices have been increased twice and they can no longer handle it.
Bread where we sell, where people have to buy 1,000 leones in the street. Now 1,000 leones at the bakery and 1,500 as retail price. Of course, we get the other bread called Tapalapa. Instead of your own price, instead with the 1,000 bread don't go to 1,500 as for retailer, and the 2,000 bread don't go for 3,000 leones for retailer. And the above increase in the prices is as a continuous increase in the price of flour, sugar, butter, wood, the tablet that we use, and even other things that we will not even mention. We've been to buy flour 275 now at 295, and take the BAM. You pay transport and try for bringing a kind of bakery must cost them 300,000 for free ton. We remember saying the provinces were telling they buy flour 320,000. So because of the other condiments how they use for produce bread and the flour in price where they go in the increase every now and then, that make the price of bread don't shoot up.
The Trade Ministry says the price of bread is not supposed to be hiked until the Bakers Association, the union, and the ministry come to a unanimous decision. But the Bakers Association claims that the Trade Ministry was informed on the continuous inflation on a bag of flour, but no positive response, even though there was an agreement between the Trade Ministry and the people in this line of business for a price monitoring team on flour, a claim debunked by the ministry.
It is not true, it is unfortunate, and it is misleading. I implore and encourage you as Fourth Estate, the journalist, in this year of 2021, the Finance Act, government has removed all tax, all duty on flour. If you're buying wholesale price of flour at 280 and you have to pay transportation cost, which you know that it has increased, after an agreement with the transport union that it should not cost more than 3,000 per bag for flour, the transporters agreed wherever a flour goes, they will not take more than 3,000. Not 295. It is available, it is in huge stock, huge supply. I am sure that very soon I will take you guys as well. You would go to see where all the flours are stored, the daily production of flour, how it is transported.
The flour brands with high demand are Bakers Life, Paddy, and Eris. One of the retailers who confirmed that prices on flour have increased twice after Ramadan had this to say.
We get Paddy flour with the company don't sell 275. We they sell to Baker Man and 280,000. The bakers, the company sell 285,000 euros. And the Life, we they sell 295. Some man they sell 290 to Baker Man. Then they get Eris flour back within the market. The company sell 290,000 euros. Then we sell 295,000.
The inflation on a loaf of bread has seriously affected vendors and the final consumers in particular.
Because I'm not getting my buy. Because we're happy, the bread non dear. All seen non dear, they are big with it. The boats are inside safe. They are the way by 2,000 bread and 2,000 motor. But right now we buy 3,000 and 3,000 motor. How go able to get food? No go able to get food, you know, easy. They are the papa, they are the put all the flour. Nothing on the party, look at.
This will affect me on the negative side because we want the amount of sales food blankets will cut down. And to the one they really come by them will see I'm very difficult. So mango big seafood, 1,000 they are not 5 help me. person, when I use big person, at times you just get fuel farm. So at the end of the day, what you forget, don't go to customer.
Efforts to get the Sierra Leone flour mill was unsuccessful. Salifu Cherno Kamara, AWAVN News in Freetown.
Many thanks indeed to Salifu Cherno Kamara for that report. Now that's where I want to bring you in, Femi Claudio School.
Would you like some clarification?
Quickly, go ahead, please. Let's allow you.
Take a look at what happened with bread. We are into an MOU with the Bakers Union as well as the Bakers Association. There are two groups.
Right.
That while we're seeing all of this happening, I mean, this is not the first time we've engaged. Remember, in 2018, the reason even why Sonoko was brought into the market was because there was some shortage of flour. So there has been an MOU between us that if we see that things are not really working the way they should be working for either the Bakers Association or the Bakers Union, the Ministry of Trade could be called upon. We have the engagements and take a look at what we can do around price review. But what happened was the Bakers Association went to the press one day that their members have agreed that they should increase the price of bread without any engagement with the Ministry of Trade. And the Bakers Union came and said, well, no, we have not, we have our members, we've not seen the need for an increase in bread price. So we called them to a meeting, and it was a long discussion. We told them, I mean, we know that some prices of certain commodities have gone up, some of the inputs into the bread have gone up, but it's not all of them that use all of these inputs. So the Bakers Union's position was that we've seen prices of flour increase, but we're still doing better than we're doing, than other countries are doing, even close to us. So we can still, I mean, there's still some margin.
Some room.
We can operate within. So if the Bakers Union is coming to say, well, we have not seen the need to actually increase flour, and the Bakers Association went to the press without even consulting us, and that was one thing I was really telling them that this should not have done. I was only called in the morning of Monday that the Bakers Association was at SLBC and they wanted to discuss issues around price increase in bread. So we told them that we can now have the engagements. They were supposed to have written us so that we have the engagement. We take a look at all the concerns that they have and the increases that they think should precipitate an increase in bread price. And we're still waiting for that letter. We're ready to engage them. But what came out of that meeting on Thursday was that we all agreed that there was not going to be any increase in bread price until the conversation was held.
And that is where we are right now.
That is where we are.
All right, Femi, let me bring you in. I mean, if you can paint us a picture of the current realities on ground.
I really want to revisit what the men have said.
Right.
First, let us go to bread. And the last time I was on your show, the minister told me not to politicize the issue.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the engagement with the union, I think there was some politicking going on there. Now, from January to August, flour went from 245 in January to 285. Butter, these are all ingredients used in bread making. Butter went from 220 to 295. Salt, 650 to 700. Sugar from 390 to 485. Oil went from 275 to 319. Now, it is okay for them to call the bakers and ask them not to increase the price of bread. Before coming to your show, I also did some research. I discovered that bread manufacturers, they have the expense of the raw materials. They then have staff salaries. They then have taxes that they have to pay. They pay NACID contributions for their staff. One of the bakeries that I visited has to bring in water by Bowser to their bakery. They spend their generator when there is no electricity. They have the expenses of fuel, and fuel has gone up. And they ask the question, what tax incentives do we receive in terms of the light of expenses that are not factored in? And then the ministry has now rolled out new cash machines for businesses so that NRA can now capture all their sales. Now, if you sell bread, 1,000, 2,000, how are those bakeries going to now incorporate the cash register. But not only that, who is going to pay for the ribbon within those cash machines? And then it's either they pay rent, which is going up yearly, or they pay city rates, and then they pay water rates for water that they don't receive. So at what point does the ministry factor in all these expenses that they have to undergo? That is not where the story ends. That's where the story continues. Where the story begins, Samuel, I think in this case, COVID-19 is innocent. Let us not blame, we are not going to blame COVID-19. When you import into Sierra Leone, the odds are stacked against you, so it is difficult for you to make profit or to grow your business. Before now, when you order a container
for COVID,
before this, let us say 2021, I'm not to blame COVID. Put COVID in come on inside there. Put COVID there. Before, when you ship a container, the moment you get your bill of lading, you get your list of the things, goods in your container, you can begin the process to clear your container. Now they have computerized their system. You can now not begin to do your paperwork until your container arrives. The shipping line gives you 5 days or 7 days to clear your container. Then you pay Bolori. Bolori gives you, one gives you 5, one gives you 7 days to clear your container. Once you exceed that days, you begin to pay demurrage and you pay rental. You pay rental to the shipping company because you hold a container. You pay Bolori to Bolori's company because I don't know what Bolori is doing in Sierra Leone, but you pay to Bolori. Oh, Bolori has all the equipment and all the machines at the airport, at the seaport. So the moment now when your container comes, it takes you 1 to 2 days to get your documents. Once you have your documents, that's the time you begin the process. So for the shipper, the clock is ticking. There was a container where the owner, and then if you are shipping something like agricultural equipment that should be duty waived, only one person can sign it, the minister. So if the minister is out of country, there is a delay. And these are the factors that are making Sierra Leone unattractive to importers. Finally, when you finally get the minister to actually look at your documents and sign it, it goes to finance. And from what my research, finance is another bottleneck. Meanwhile, you're already paying demurrage. You're already incurring costs on your container. And that is one of the reasons why somebody who used to import maybe 50 containers for the year now will only bring in a handful of containers. So those expenses add up for the importer and makes it unattractive, and those expenses have to be passed on to the consumer. So when you look at the Port of Sierra Leone as the way it's operating, the problem is born right there. The old system can be incorporated into the computer system.
How?
So that instead of starting the process, the moment you ship, when you get your bill of lading, all those information can be inputted into the computer and you start the process.
Is it not as a result of trying to let people do not cheat the system? Because at the end of the day, government has to run. And
well, that is the job of the ministry. We have ministries that have deputies, and the deputies have deputies. So they can be busy at work screening the fraudulent ones from the genuine ones. That's why the government pays a lot for staff. So that problem is the root of all evil. And then, when you finally bring out your container, the government beautifully has given microcredit to some of the market women. What those market women then do is to convert their money to dollar and take the dollar to Guinea or to Liberia and purchase, because the goods in Liberia and Guinea is cheaper than the goods in Sierra Leone. So me, they come, upgrade me market front you shop. I don't get for pay tax. I don't get for pay rent. I don't get for pay seat. So my prices will now be in competition with you. We get severe, serious overheads, and you have a ball and chain strapped to both your ankles. So what am I saying? I am saying that the first place, and we can never do price control. We can't, because
we're a free market economy.
And then one other thing I forget to interject inside all this expense, corruption. Corruption. If you not pass your money, your documents are in a bottleneck. If the minister, there was an incident where the minister had traveled, nobody signed. So there has to be a system whereby a permanent secretary, and those should be things, because remember, ministers come and ministers go. So the system should be set up so that permanent secretary able to sign, director able to sign.
Is that not where the corruption, would thrive more? When you have,
But those are your civil servants. Those are the people who are trained to run your civil service. Ministers, it has pleased His Excellency. And it has pleased His Excellency to hire anybody. He can hire me to go and be a heart surgeon. He can hire me to go and drive a plane. That has pleased His Excellency. But we're talking about administrators of the ministry who should be trained, who will know where the gaps are to siphon the criminals from the genuine business people. This is the cry of the business people.
Do you want the minister to just quickly have a bite on that? Just a quick clarification. Yes.
Sure.
Samuel, thank you. I will still insist that Femi is politicizing a number of things here. Even with the figures that she has given are not true. Flour by January was not 245. Flour was 260, the wholesale price. I can actually just give her a couple of evidences. When we brought in Sonoko, at the time when flour started going down in 2018, they were selling flour. Imagine in 2018, they were selling flour at 260,000. And with all of what Femi is saying here, I genuinely want to listen to this conversation, especially as contributions for her, and actually try to weigh the merits of what she's saying. But she's just politicizing everything. Take a look at what she just said, that if the minister is not there,
they don't sign.
No, but
they don't sign the waiver, sir.
You have a deputy minister.
They are not allowed to sign.
Let me come, please, Femi. You had your time. I think you
you're in my time right now, Mr. Minister. You said, could you interject?
I think someone asked me to intervene here.
Okay.
There is a deputy minister that has, because you have the Asikuda system. In most cases, Samuel, when you come with goods that are actually supposed to be duty-free, that's the only time a minister has to go through, or a deputy minister has to go through and try to validate whether this company or whosoever is bringing in the containers to be given duty waivers. But a minister does not require to sign if you're actually going to be paying your duty and everything. It's not true. So you see, and when she's saying that commodities in Guinea are doing better than in Sierra Leone, I would agree with her partially, but it's not all commodities that are doing. What about petroleum products? I've just highlighted here. If you go to the border, you can see that once there is a price differential between petrol in Sierra Leone and in Guinea, you see a lot of the trucks going across the country, the border. We take a look at the flour that she's just mentioning. Flour in Guinea right now, as I'm speaking, the wholesale price is 320. Before this time, Sonoko had cause to even bring flour because the price of flour was almost the same, and they were looking for a market. But now that the price of flour in Guinea is 320 a bag, and in Sierra Leone here it's 285, you just heard from the reporter, can you be encouraged to bring flour from Guinea into Sierra Leone? That's not true. We have a couple of commodities that we're really doing well, and I really want her to be taking a look, like she was saying that the data, most of what she has there as figures are not correct. And I think when she wants to come here, we want to discuss these issues.
All right.
And let me come. The bottom line, you want to have this conversation. You want to have this conversation that she said COVID has nothing to do with what is currently happening.
I did not say that. I said we are not going to blame COVID.
Don't blame COVID, meaning COVID has nothing to do. Samuel, let me just finish.
Want to come back.
Don't blame COVID, meaning COVID has nothing to do with what is happening currently. That's not true.
The point I am making is this. the ports have a huge problem that this government can conveniently address.
Which we have done.
Making the port attractive to businesses. Here he said that one mining company is pulling out of Sierra Leone. Those who were manufacturing Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all those things, that factory closed in Sierra Leone and went to Guinea. There is something we are doing here that is unattractive to business people. We are taxing them, and this key, I forgot to give you the list. So the shipper will pay shipping company, pay customs, pay ports, pay Bolori, pay ECOWAS, pay income tax, pay GST, pay sales tax, and then pay yearly on one business. So we are actually killing the goose where they lay the golden egg.
All right. Yes, I know we have an agreement and you want to leave.
But let me come in, Samuel, before Abubakar comes in. But this is what is happening in every other country. And note what she said. I did not really say that a mining company is shutting down. While Coca-Cola, no, you did not get me right there. While Coca-Cola is shutting down, a number of companies that are producing beverages have come into the market.
Okay.
So if you say that we're killing, I mean, maybe that's her opinion, but I'm sure
Coca-Cola closed a while ago.
She has not taken her time. There is a company producing.
I've taken my time.
There is a company producing Coca-Cola already.
Let's cool off. Let's cool off. Abubakar, I'll give you a minute. I know we have an agreement. You have to leave. Then I'll bring in Valnora.
No, I want to focus on the waiver issue. You know, BAN, we have been working on this tax exemption, this waiver for a long time. It's no secret. We are losing millions of dollars from these waivers. And some of them, they are not even within the law because the law stipulates who and who is supposed to receive waivers. There are evidence that some people receive waivers that are not supposed to receive the waiver. There are evidence that an individual can even sign for an institution or a company to get a waiver. So with all of this, we've pushed over the years for government to develop a deed waiver policy. A draft was developed, which we made our extensive inputs. And if you look at the 2019-2020 budget, they said that document is going to be tabled in cabinet for approval, and then subsequently tabled in parliament. And one of the things we find out, just as Femi said, the bureaucracy, the long bureaucracy in giving out waivers. So as one of the recommendations there was to have a one-stop shop. So where you do not have to move from this point, this point, this point, this point. So Femi was right in terms of the process to go around to get a waiver was a challenge. So one of the recommendations was to have a one-stop shop. Where the issue of waiver is either you get the waiver, it's either you are qualified for it,
or you're not.
Or you're not qualified for it. So if you are qualified for it, there should not be any bureaucracy as long as you have all your documentation correct. So I hope the Minister of Finance will fast-track that document to be tabled in cabinet and then subsequently tabled in parliament so that we move away from the challenges Madam Femi was talking about. But it is a challenge, and government is losing resources there.
All right. I will leave you shortly to run. I know we have an agreement and I have to keep up to that. Let me bring in Valnora. You followed the conversation. I mean, quite interesting and trying to... Now, with what is currently happening in Sierra Leone, us, the average Sierra Leoneans, we feel like we're suffering. Things are really biting hard, as the minister said. Things Femi also mentioned, people are suffering, and of course, it's unbearable. But this is not the making of you, me, the government, or just it's a combination of a whole lot of factors, external and internal. So if we are to paint a picture and give us show us a path out of where we are, what will be your submission?
As I've always said to you, whenever lately you invite me to sessions, we're always repeating the same drama,
right?
Just in a different scenario, but the conversation has been the same. So I'd like us to look at it more broadly.
Go ahead.
We had a conflict, and I think that has provided us an opportunity to learn from the mistakes of the past and inform how we move forward. Countries such as Namibia and Rwanda, they have moved forward. They learned the mistakes of the past, they had civil conflicts, and their economy and other social issues are moving in a much more constructive and promising manner than we are. And I think the discussion around the economy has to do a lot with, it's more of a political discussion. Where is the political will? For most of these things that have been discussed for several years, where is the political will in terms of moving it forward? So we might say there are external and there are internal factors.
Right.
External factors, why would we sit 20 years on and still be labeled as a high-risk country? There's a gap there, and that's where the politicians need to respond. Is there a group or an individual who is benefiting from that? Because I wouldn't like my streets or my home to be blacklisted, let alone as an individual. We're all Sierra Leoneans. So you have countries that have gone through worse context or even going through worse context than we had. And their shipping issues are not has not trailed so long as have. So they need to respond to that, why that has not been addressed over time. The issue around some of these internal or even the external, even if you want to say COVID and etc. And I think that is why we talk about having a resilient economy. So our economy is not resilient because when you have a resilient economy, naturally there will be shocks. And that's where you come in.
But we do not produce to make our economy. So that's the
next point. You come in to cushion the effect. So the next question they need to respond, why are we not producing? And what we see happening over time, I am in this space now. I come in with 5 companies. When you sit in the space, 2 companies leave and I come in with 3 more. The question then comes in, why don't we maintain the 5 companies that have come in with, and you can come in with 3 more or 6 more or even 1 more if that's within your competence. So we take 3 steps forward and we take 4 steps backward. And that is why I said it's a political question, a political conversation. Why don't we have the political will to move things forward? Whenever I hear, and the issue around the port is one of many issues affecting inflation. There are other related costs. The issue around phone credits. We should all know that initially you would send a text message as long as a page, and you pay the same. Now you send 3 or 4, or when you send 9, you are billed 3 times. You look at the cost of electricity. You look at the cost of even water supply that most of us don't even have, but you are given a bill to pay. You look at even those who are doing businesses, school will reopen. It's a free quality education. But even recently, I saw someone requesting for some information to say there were no school fees. The individual sent the list from the school. They pay for band, they pay for T-shirt, they have to pay for sports, they pay for furniture and some other, and it was about 1.5 million. So when you have all these, I call them associated costs that needs to be taken into consideration, goods and services would increase. We would ask ourselves, we usually say you want pepper and ogiri, and they tell you the dollar.
Right.
But they will tell you about the dollar because they are utilizing commodities that are bought with dollar. We wear clothes, we wear shoes, we buy bags, we buy furniture, and these are imported. And again, it comes to the question, why are we not manufacturing? I know growing up, we had clay factory, we had flour mill, my mother used to work in this place called Wellington Distilleries. We had Natco biscuits. We were doing Mabas sugar. We had palm oil. We had all of that. So why don't we revitalize or restart these investments? Why don't we plow all these microcredit things we give out? Why don't we plow it into strengthening the infrastructure of water and energy?
Can government run or operate those things, or do we have the private sector, inject huge amount of money in those areas as investments?
So that's where I was going.
Go ahead.
They bring in this infrastructure. You have most domestic and foreign investors that come in. Government might say, I'll have a 10% share or a 20%. You don't have to own, you don't have to be in everything. Either you allow the private sector 100% to control, or you say I'll have a 10% share and you leave it open. But again, all these things that have been said before, including the issue around corruption, are militating against us. So that's why I'm saying it has to be, they need to tell us, why can't we have companies? Why every government that comes in, we lose out on the previous companies that had existed? And then, and to bring in these investments, it takes time. You might say, I've signed the agreement, but it takes 2, 3, 4 years for that to manifest. And then it takes another 10 years for us to feel the actual benefits of that. So as a country, we are not moving forward. And that's the question they need to tell us. Why don't we have the real commitment to say, as a nation, we need to make these pure decisions? And what becomes troubling? Sierra Leone is a country that has a lot of resources that we are not maximizing. And I think a question was asked, if we have a say in these international decisions. We cannot have a say because we are begging all the time. We are waiting for handouts. But where we make good use of our resources, we have commodities that are needed by others. Then you have a standing to say, you know, when they're making these decisions, you raise your hand up, they'll say, yes, Sierra Leone, what do you have to say to this? Because you are a contender, you have something to offer. But most of the time, we sit and wait for handouts, for things to be begging here and begging there. And so when these decisions are made, in as much as we might have very good opinions, very valuable contributions to make, unfortunately, nobody gives us the floor because we are not viable in the international arena.
So in essence, what we are currently witnessing is as a result of government's lack of commitment, whether it was the previous or the current government?
So I would put it in my governance language, bad governance. In certain, not that steps have not been taken, but we take baby steps. And like I've said, when you do, the minister mentioned a couple of few things that should get us somewhere. But these are like baby steps and we're hanging there, we're not sure. In a few years' time, is there going to be a reversal of all these steps that have been made? So I see for governance, it's a building block, it's continuity. And I've said it several times, I am leading, I hand the baton to you. You should run faster than myself. But what we do, we get back to the starting line. Say the way Valnora be one, in fact, I go begin the race back. But I saw that countries are moving forward. That is what our governance system has been. So some good steps would have been made that somebody else needs to build on, solidify, strengthen. But what we do, we start all over again. And so we are not achieving as much as we should be achieving. And I think it's a disservice to ourselves if we start comparing ourselves to countries in West Africa. And we always like comparing ourselves to the negatives. Most of these countries have a better middle income earners than we have in Sierra Leone. And so they have more income, more disposable income. They have wider private sector base that we do not necessarily have. So if you say our own is 10,000, theirs is 12, yes, because they have a good percentage of their population that can afford it. And because they spread the wealth. But the wealth is restricted. So if you say, in fact it's lower, it's 10,000, it doesn't mean we can afford it. We cannot afford it. Maybe what we can afford by our status is 5,000 per litre. Then that's good enough for us. So they can stay in their 12,000 zone. But we, by the way things are formulated, we can afford 5,000.
Bakar, just quickly before leaving you, what then should we look forward to as the informative way forward to take us out of where we are? From your own view.
There are a couple of reasons that can be attributed both internationally and locally. And I want to subscribe to Valnora, especially when it comes in terms of the comparison. How much is being paid for a civil service worker in Sierra Leone compared to Ghana? Those comparisons are not made. You can see the disparity might be more than 3 or 4 times. Someone in Ghana, civil service can receive, for example, $1,000, and then the person in Sierra Leone can receive like $100.
We cannot afford it. That's the cry always.
If you do the competition, even though the price might be high over there, they have the ability to purchase that particular quantity or that particular commodities with ease, without no convenience. But whilst in our case now, it might be the different. So to me, a couple of reasons. One, as Valnora said, let's have governance as a building block, one building on another. And to be more specific on the issues around the increase in the price of goods and services, as I stated earlier, first of all, let's have the commitment from our government to address some of these key international challenges that have to do with the freight, I mean, the sheep, the high insurance. To me, I see that one as negligence over the years from this government and from the past government to address that particular issue, because it has taken long. The war is now over 20 years. From the Peace Index, we are 14 in West Africa and I think 46 in the world. So we should push to address those external factors. Coming to the internal factors, and of course, there are a couple of factors. Madam Femi mentioned, you know, when the economics talk about cost of production. To produce bread, it's not just to buy the flour and then automatically the bread is being done. There are other factors, other commodities that come in for that bread to be produced. So if all of those other factors, the price have increased, absolutely a marginal increase in the flour will definitely just tie the whole thing up. So we should see how we can, try to see how we can, first of all, improve on our industrialization. Majority of what we are consuming in Sierra Leone is being imported. If those...
And that has been a monumental crisis.
In fact, we are going behind. We are not even going forward. In the past, we do have some of the factors, but now we are not hearing of them. So we are going backward. So we should. So this is why I want to compliment what the minister said. We start to see how we can ensure that we have those factories that will produce some of those basic things. Now we have all of this international commitment, the ECOWAS, field level. We are not going to benefit much from those things because we are not producing. So then we just be producing as send and also we do not just for consuming more. So we must see to be moving to a more industrialized country. And of course, government has a responsibility to create the fair playing environment. What has happened over the years, we might not say it might not even not happening, it's about how do we conduct our businesses. How some of these contracts were signed under secrecy. Some of those fiscal policy in those contracts were not favorable for the states. For example, in 2013-2014, we did a study called Losing Out. For just 4 multinationals, we lose like $224 million annually. And that amount is really a conservative figure. At that particular point in time, that amount was 8 times the health budget.
And why was that?
Plus 7 times the education budget.
And why did we lose that amount of money?
One, because of the generous tax exemption we just give out without doing any cost-benefit analysis. I mean, those exemptions are part of government expenditure. If you are coming with your company in the country, I say, don't pay this, I may want to see what I'm going to benefit. But just giving out those exemptions without any proper cost-benefit analysis, we are just losing. In fact, that's one reason why we're giving out losing now. We are just losing resources. The other one has to do with corruption. Those contracts are not being done on a transparent manner. And some of the physical policies inside those contracts do not even tally with any laws or the policies. In fact, in some instances, it even goes against our laws. For example, we are supposed to pay, say, 3%. You say, no, don't worry, you pay 1% or 5%. It even goes against some of our legal laws. So government should create that fair playing ground for business to thrive in that fair playing competition without putting one business above the other. Now, let me tell you, when business come and they have to pay a whole lot of cost to establish the business, what happens? They will translate those costs on the output they're going to produce, and that will translate into the cost of that service or goods. And then who will suffer? The ordinary Sierra Leonean will actually suffer.
Okay. Femi, as you take your leave, Bakar, Femi, let me ask you this question. Just quickly, what should be done at this point to get things on track for Sierra Leone and Sierra Leoneans? Okay,
now, the bread and butter issue, I want to go there. You permit me, let's talk this now, Creole.
Go ahead.
The pepper, 8,000, 10,000 for cup. Coal, 40,000 for bag. Produce here. These are local. What are the handicaps? What's in government fit to do right now, today, that we don't blame COVID? One, the bribery and corruption at the checkpoints. When I traveled recently, look, lamb by bag, look, pepper day by bag, all sitting by the wayside, rotting, Samuel. The cost of transportation because of the fuel, then the drivers of the vehicles pass on the bribery to the Makituma, the way they bring their load. There is no provision for them to keep their stuff refrigerated. That is something the Minister of Trade can look into. Maybe an investor who you will give a break or bring cooling space for them, these women, to be able to keep their produce. So locally made stuff. The other day, one fish, 30,000. And when you buy the fish so, it get for sale. If not, it get for buy ice. If you don't get away for buy ice, it get for go smoke them, it get for go buy wood. So the price of goods will continue to escalate because, as you say, you can't compare them to probably countries where they have, the markets have storage units and the markets have cold units. Then a country that we are ready for investors. Any investor that comes to Sierra Leone, where it looks so, now run it, they run. So we have to make the situation, let it find for we Makituma them. Look at the conditions under which then they sell.
But these are things that cannot happen now.
No, the bribery and corruption at the checkpoints, it could have happened yesterday. They should address it yesterday. The team when they passed Makituma and them, even traders coming from Conakry, there was a time when I said, I want to experience it. I went to Guinea. And from that day, they now left for your way with the one the way to go by in Guinea. Honestly, where I experience what those women and young men are going through, you realize that the odds are stacked against them. The corruption at the borders, coming, going, till they reach inside Freetown, is unbelievable.
And this is the attitude of you and I.
Yes.
You and I there.
Yes.
So we are compounding the problems.
We are making everything worse because somebody has to take charge. That we're going to make things better, that some things are going to be unacceptable. Person bring in container, do you have to have a baby boy at the key before you're able to put your container? This waiver he's talking about, I have a personal friend, I spoke to the minister the last time we met, who brought farming equipment, tractors that are supposed to be duty waivered. They don't open the mining container, they don't pull all the machine there. They've seen it. He still has not been able to receive his container. So how are you promoting an investor? So you are happy now they take hold no more. The woman then does they take hold for the dig for the plant. When are we going to take a leap forward? And if the ports in Sierra Leone are attractive, it doesn't have to be a free port per se. It can be a port with minimal bureaucracy, minimal taxation, and trade. Remember when Auntie they sell salt, pork and salt waiting. Goods were coming to be purchased from Sierra Leone. Instead of us going to Guinea, go buy in Guinea, go buy in Liberia. Imagine, Samuel, if Guinea, Liberia, Ghana, all the kaya can buy because we have the deepest harbor.
I've spoken to some experts in taxation, and the arguments they've advanced is that we do not have a broad tax base. So it will be difficult, and government depends about 70 to 80%
on taxation.
Exactly. I mean, it has to generate funds to run and service the different projects we have. So how then do we reduce or say, let's go minimal? And the person was actually telling me, even when the government announced tax breaks, suspension and all of that, the person was asking, the government is actually killing itself.
Yes. Samuel, me when Sidoya been they sell used things, junks. Me self been they sell junks. Ask the one the way sabi me. My policy, me staff can say, Auntie Femi, now then Belgium man then they can buy. It's the price. I said, me not buy them for like, when I wake in the morning, I don't start clean them. I buy them for like, I sell them. So I reduce my profit so that my goods sell quickly.
And you know how that's how it works. I mean, you're selling.
So my turnover is greater.
I'll come for 5,000 and I'll go sell 15,000 because I know people will go for it.
I said, pay me price.
So it comes back to us.
Once you pay me price, I'm comfortable.
All right.
Consequently, Samuel, 1 second.
Yes, quickly.
Is that if Sierra Leone reduces, now the businessman will be in bring 12 containers, now only brings 2 or 3. But if you are attractive, it's doing evil that good may come.
Okay.
So you are investing in it.
I'll come to you shortly. Let's Valora just have a minute, quickly.
The solution
is
not just about the Ministry of Trade.
Go ahead.
As I've said in my earlier submission, it's an entire governance collaborative effort. And I don't think it's really a chicken and egg issue. How do I manage taxation? Government needs the tax to run the country, and it's going to adversely affect.
Right.
The issue around corruption, the issue around enforcing laws, the issue around the borders, you know, all these things are a holistic, intersectoral collaboration. That needs to happen for us to get where we need to be. And one thing we have always been talking about, what is our national agenda? what is our national vision? When you recall I mentioned, I'm not an economist.
Yes.
Even when they talk about these two digits and one, I have no clue what that means.
Yes.
But what I think I will understand is when maybe the Minister of Finances or whoever would say, now it's 11,000 to the dollar, and we are putting measures in place to ensure that in 3-4 years' time, we can have it as 5,000 to the dollar. I think I can understand that.
Okay.
I think if the government comes in to say, now we're importing rice, maybe 90% of the rice we need is being imported, and we are going to work within the next 2 years to see that we import only 50%, we need to produce 50%, and these are the A, B, C, D things we need to do. That is what we want to hear. But unfortunately, we don't get that.
Okay. Let me allow the minister to respond to your submissions quickly.
Samuel, you can see that I think most of what this conversation has been based on was a lot more on what has happened in the past. This government has done a lot to improve a number of these issues around trade, good governance, etc., etc. As I speak to you, Femi may not agree with me, but there is an inter-ministerial committee that is reviewing why Sierra Leone is still considered a high-risk country. That is one effort which this government has done. We've put together all the issues. Why is it that Sierra Leone is still considered a high-risk country? And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is taking the lead in ensuring that we're able to reverse this. The war happened. I mean, after the war, there has been a government that's been here for 10 years. We came after 3 years. You've seen how much we are trying to do. And if you take a look at some of the issues around the one-stop shop, which Abdul mentioned, that is what is happening. Asikuda World came in, and you can see how much that has improved a lot on the system. The apprehension around whether there is corruption, some of those things really stand, they're valid. But I tell you, there has been a lot of improvement in the mechanism. The bureaucracy that you've been talking about as to who confirms what should be approved, I think has been improved a whole lot. I sit on even in my house, I can actually log into the Asikuda, and if I see anybody who is applying for a waiver and that person meets, I just ask a couple of my technical staff to inform me about what is going on, and when they do that, I just approve it. So you can see that a lot is really happening. A lot has changed. A lot has happened that has improved the system. To talk about why companies have shut down over the years, we all would agree that the war brought a lot of devastation to businesses in this country. Look at what happened to PK Oil Mills. It was during the war that it was bombed. A couple of other companies, the market shrinked after the war. And so it did not make business sense for most of those factories to really continue in business because they were losing. And now there were no market opportunities, like, for instance, the ECOWAS market, which we have formed, and even the continental market that we formed. So if you operate in Sierra Leone, you are only merely going to be producing for Sierra Leone. But now, with all of the improvement you've seen, even in the doing business, we are doing very, very well with a number of indicators on the doing business. And these are some of the things which people need to open their eyes to. And if you take a look at some of the other things which government have done, putting in place the correct policy framework that will actually bring in industry, you can see that we've made a lot of strides there. The review of the industry policy is one. The special economic zone policy, which we have already worked on, is another. We've done the agro-processing policy, which never existed. There is now a national trade strategy, which is going to support Sierra Leone to be able to do businesses with other countries. And a couple of other policy frameworks are actually coming up. We've done the review on the cooperative policy to allow the rural economy to actually start having life. And take a look at the Munafa Fund. Okay, well, one may want to say, oh, there are other more serious things. But you also have businesses, and it's been discussed all over, that businesses find it difficult to have access to finance. And now that we're doing it, it's part of the priorities with government really think that we need to help small businesses to be able to have finance. And the one thing which the Munafa Fund even did was to look at the interest rate, which we have drastically reduced. It's now in single digits. going for 9%, which other banks are not offering. I mean, Femi will want to benefit from that. Once she is ready, we can let her go through this. And the other thing which she mentioned, which honestly, take politics out, you want to have a waiver. I think one thing you want to do first is waivers are not just granted. You have to go, you discuss your business with the MDA or the ministry that is in charge. They take an assessment of what kind of business you want to come with. Because you could still bring in tractors for sale instead of actually putting it into agriculture. How can you just bring a tractor and the Ministry of Agriculture has not confirmed that you have a farm and then they just grant you a waiver? Those are all some of the leakages. So you go, you have an engagement with the MDA that's in charge of that sector that you want to come and operate. They have you and they do an assessment of what you really want to come and do, what impact it's going to have on the economy. And then once your goods come, you easily, or maybe on its way, you go to the ministry. But I'm not going to join Femi in that argument at all, because I think there is so much that is, there is so much that we think this government has done to actually, I mean, take a look at some of the things which the other contributors mentioned. Yes, we want fuel to be at 5,000. By every standard, this government would want to see it happen. But if the price of the commodity internationally is high, you're not producing it, and you bring it into this country, and as a government, you really want to fix it at 5,000, where are you going to get the resources? You know, government has commitment to paying salaries, to doing a number of things. We already have a wage bill. So you can see the number of things which you are really seeing that government is doing. And honestly, let me don't hide this from you, Samuel. Come and say people should be selling products at 5,000 when they're actually buying it at maybe way above 5,000. The businesses are going to shut down. They say, oh, we do not make any, we do not see any business sense to import products into this country at a certain price, and then government is saying that we must sell at this. There are a couple of interventions which government can do. And government itself, even though it has all the powers to do what it can do to fix a number of things, we are still limited. This is a small economy, and this is what people should open their eyes to. It's a small economy. You cannot compare it to other big economies.
Samuel,
and if you're comparing Sierra Leone, you really don't want to start comparing Sierra Leone.
You started comparing.
Excuse me. We need to compare. Please, Femi, give me time. We really need to compare Sierra Leone with our neighboring countries. I mean, we're going through the same challenges. You cannot tell me don't compare what is happening in Sierra Leone to what is happening in Guinea. You cannot. I'm not saying Vanora said that. Maybe it's an opinion sound. Vanora is sounding of a number of people. You cannot. You don't want to compare yourself with some other countries outside your own economic situation. You really want to start making comparison based on what other countries within your sub-region are actually going through. Because the same freight charges which you're facing are the same freight charges. I mean, if you want to look at what is happening with freight, with regards to what comes into East Africa, it's a completely different ballgame compared to what happens with freight coming down to West Africa. So you want to be comparing what the other countries within West Africa are actually going through, and then you try to benchmark them and see what other improvements you can do to actually help the situation in the country.
Permit me to bring in our viewers. Keep that. I'll give you time to respond.
1 second, please, Samuel.
Go ahead.
The point that he made was that the price here is cheaper. We for Glady because it's cheap now, past Guinea and other countries. And the point that Vanora made was the cost of living in those countries and their incomes are drastically different. So for we, waiting there for we na salon where we the pick change, now, Lucifer, some say, is different. So for us, 5,000 is okay.
But
for that country,
you're still totally ignoring the fact that we are not producing those commodities locally.
So
these commodities are coming internationally.
So this is what we should be busy planning.
You can produce petroleum when you don't even have the reserve.
Yeah, we used to have a refinery. We used to do sugar. We used to do palm oil. We used to do this. We were the Athens of West Africa. We were this. We were that. We're living on history.
Let's begin our viewers.
And we blame COVID.
quickly bring in our viewers. The number to call is +232 30622766 +232 30622766. Ibrahim, we've gotten the very first caller. Good evening and welcome to AYV on Sunday.
Yeah, good evening, Samuel, and good evening, your panelists, the minister, and my colleagues, the civil society, Vanora and Ban. You know, this is what our role is for. The civil society role is there to call the relevant authority, draw their attention on things bothering the nation. This is what we have been calling on this current new direction, that the way things used to be, just like what my colleague Ban have mentioned, look at the decade-long issues of grading salon. Whilst in Africa, we are the third or fourth peaceful country in the world, and I mean in Africa, the world, I think 40 or 45 or 46, we are there. But we cannot defend simple things that will bring the economic burden on our people. And when this government take over, these were the issues, some of us, we have the document. And this is why when people talk about civil society, our role is not to fight government. Just like what colleagues and bands are saying, we are there to highlight the issues. And these are the issues.
Okay.
What we want our government, to do now is to really see how they can be able to cushion some of these taxes. That's why Bianco Foundation International, long before this time when President took 1 year in office, we brought out some of these releases. What's supposed to happen about this bread and butter? So we are calling now on the government. We are not saying Sierra Leone should not compare themselves with other countries. It's good because we're in the global world. We're supposed to do
I'll give you 30 seconds more.
Yes, but we are saying, let us deal with the situation at hand. Let government try to push it with the duty, that duty area, the custom area. Let government intervene. Some of these local, basic food stuff, which we cannot be able to produce for now. We know they're on the verge, agriculture is coming. It's not forthcoming now. But for the ones we're importing now, let them look and reduce duty on it.
Unfortunately, we do not have time, so we're going to be giving 40 seconds per caller. I'm sorry we would have to drop this call. If you want to be part of the conversation, move away from your TV or radio set. But if you want to hear, I know it's always a difficult thing to do. I mean, resisting that urge that you still want to hear yourself. But please try as best as possible to move away from your TV or radio set, please. Good evening, AYV on Sunday.
Hello.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Samuel.
Your name and where you're calling us from, please, quickly.
Yeah, Bosseli from Donzak.
Quickly go ahead, Bosseli.
First of all, I want to say very big thanks to Madam Cole in the studio. I mean, like, the minister is trying to fight for his job at his office. Because if you look at the way things are now going, it is going in the wrong way. Understand? Because initially, the past government was trying to put things in place so that the importers cannot increase prices on commodity goods, like the Asian food, like flour, sugar, and other things. But if you look at this current government, they are not doing things like that. All they care about is for their own selfish interest and other things. So the way things are going, I'm afraid. Because if they cannot be able to control the price control.
Hello, caller. 40 seconds, I'll drop the call. Hello, caller.
Yes, thank you. Hello.
Your name and where you're calling us
Hello?
from. You have 40 seconds. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Malaika and I'm calling from Candidate for.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for the audience. Well, actually, first and foremost, let me talk about the issues that we are discussing here. For society, the problems of the hike in prices of our basic commodities, especially due to the taxation of the government in products that are being imported in this country. For example, the basic things like the flour, the rice, and you name it. So, Madam Balora is talking about the government getting income from tax. There are several other areas where the government can bring in income to run the day-to-day affairs of the government. Let's talk about the mining sector, the mineral, the tax. Let's talk about the timber, where the government is making billions of dollars. The last time we had the former chief minister going to Kenema, asking for list for their supporters.
All right, 3 more calls, 40 seconds each. Good evening, AYV on Sunday.
Yeah, Samuel, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Samanga calling from Kenema.
Quickly, go ahead.
Thank you. Of course, by the region I'm coming from, people listening there may think about a positive response or comment for the SLP party because of coming from Kenema, but I will disappoint you this time around. Definitely, I may be SLPP, but trade issue is biting every one of us living in Sierra Leone. So when goods are up, we all feel the pinch. So make I just to the line of Femi Claudia School. She has been always giving her opinion why I'm always thinking it in an opposite direction. But this time around today, I think I support you. The bureaucracy at the key, our only key we have in Sierra Leone, water key. I think it's enormous to swallow every business we're doing in Sierra Leone. So please, Mr. Minister, look into these things and make sure that we're really able to continually...
AYV on Sunday, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Samuel. This is Prezo calling from Jamaica Junction to see.
40 seconds.
Yeah, and actually, if we want to put it right, the people of this country are really suffering. If you go to the streets, you walk at the streets of Freetown, then you ask the people, they are going to tell you that things are not really working good for them. Can you imagine if someone is receiving 1,500,000 euros and that person has to go to his or her place of work? The person has to pay transport fare, taking care of your family, taking care of your very self. That money is too small. Thinking about teachers, police, nurses, these people are less paid. And if the minister is comparing Sierra Leone to other countries that are having a better living, we cannot do such kind of comparison.
Thank you. 40 seconds. Last caller, please. Good evening, AYV on Sunday.
Yes, good evening, Samuel.
Yeah, 40 seconds. Your name and where you're calling us from.
Yeah, this is Ivan calling from Aberdeen.
Go ahead.
The problem with tree, administration in, administration out, we have people in public offices who go and do all research about how to give excuses to us, the people, instead of spending that time and resources to think about problem solving. Hearing the minister there blaming COVID, blaming friends, blaming everything, these problems have been existing time in, time out. We need people who can solve the problems of this country. We don't need people to give us excuses. The excuses have been given to us since John was a boy. We don't need people to continue giving us excuses at this time. We need problem solvers. If you know you cannot solve the problems of these people, of the people of this country, get out of office, please. We are tired of excuses. We are tired of it.
Thank you, and that's it for the calls. Quickly, let me just one few messages on Facebook. Ibrahim Jokema is saying, with the coming of the government school bus, it also solves the problem of bread and butter for parents. Let's assume that a family lives around Lumley, and the children used to pay 10,000 each for transportation to and back from St. Edwards or Prince of Wales. This means for 20 school days in a month, this family would pay 200,000 euros for a child and 600,000 euros for the 3 children. With the school bus introduced, each child pays now 4,000 euros to and back. This means that the same family now pays, interesting. I'm still okay. I have to leave it there. Mr. Minister, we need the reality that can transform the lives of the people of Sierra Leone. We had too much agreement and projects signed. We want to see it come to reality. Ambassador Mike Joseph Kanu is saying, our farmers must have a share of the $200 million controlled by the few cartels over the decades. The same goes for the fishing sector. who again are controlled by another cartels, leaving our fishmongers and artisanal fishermen in the doldrums. We must value our people to enjoy the wealth which belongs to us all instead of the few. Ronald George Stone, sensing that one. Okay, yeah, Francis King is saying, I have to skip the political messages. There are people in Sierra Leone like Madam Femi who know the clear picture of the constraints our country, Sierra Leone, is going through. Fudebi Kamara is saying, exactly, Mr. Minister, everything, politics, okay, Samura Kamara, I'm skipping that. I'll skip it. It's always a tough thing to go through the messages. You have to scroll through. Okay, I think I might just leave the messages there. You people, when you were in, okay, I'll have to leave the messages there. It's so difficult for me to go through right now. We have, unfortunately, a little over 500,000 active people there already, but I have to hold it there, unfortunately, because I cannot go through the messages. But let me start off with you. As we try to round up, where do we take Sierra Leone from where we are at this point?
I think there has to be a strong commitment from everyone. And as I keep on saying, I will not limit the whole context we're in to just the Ministry of Trade, right, or even the ports. It's a holistic approach, an entire governance, and it's about being committed, not only at the state level, but even as citizens. We talk about what happens at the border areas. I've gone through the same. I've gone through to Liberia, and we had to intervene when these women were coming in because the gender-based violence issues. They come in and they are stopped, and some are asked for sexual favors at the border. Yeah. So it's a whole, you know, but if there is commitment from the state actors, enforcement of laws, decentralizing control, and allowing regional or district structures to function well, and Sierra Leoneans themselves being true to themselves, I think we'll be able to make headway. Okay. One thing we distance ourselves from, any one of us could be anything. Any one of us could become a president or a minister or an MP or at a decision-making level. And if you are outside that space and you cannot be honest, you do not have integrity, you don't think Sierra Leone, when you sit in that space, you'll not be able to be any different. Right. So in as much as we point fingers, yes, at those because they are most responsible, but the moving things forward, being law-abiding, this, you know, over-profiteering, yes, the things are expensive, but you also realize you go to one shop. For example, I drink powdered milk. You find like the medium size in one shop, it's 95,000. You go to another shop, it's 120,000. You might argue maybe the overhead cost of that supermarket or shop is higher than the next, but that's a wide disparity between 95 and 120. So it's about how do we...
So you're speaking to the attitude of all Sierra Leoneans?
I think the attitude of Sierra Leoneans also needs to be positive, but the way that change needs to happen is to how you ensure that the rules and regulations, we've gone over that. If you say it's a duty waiver, it's clear who is entitled, who is not entitled. If you say I've introduced a computerized system to make things easier, allow it to function well. If somebody needs to sign, let them make sure they do their jobs effectively. It's just these day-to-day little things. One last quick point. I think I always try to tell politicians that there are three stages. You have the strategic level, you have the implementation operational, and you have the effect. And sometimes we come from the background of the effect. So there could be the policies which are needed, the legislations, the institutions, and all of that. But some, you have the low-hanging fruit, you have the medium, and you have the long term. Some of these things, it's good to start them now, but we don't get the effect, so we'll complain, because we want some things to move faster than they're doing now. So that's where we're coming from.
All right, thank you. I'm going to allow you and allow the minister to respond quickly.
No, I think that there are things that they can do now. And I think one of it is some of the stuff that I've mentioned at the key that is actually killing businesses. And Van Noy, the two businesses can be next door to each other with totally different expenses.
True.
And we have, city rates have gone up.
Yeah.
So I may be a person owning my own building, running my own store. I can afford to sell a little cheaper. The person on the other hand, they pay rent. And sometimes when the landlord add up, they can't get back in shop. So I don't know what your expenses are. So there's no question that we are going to be unable to control any prices. But I think the ports can be better structured. There can be less bureaucracy. We can take advantage. And there are certain things that I would love published. How much is Bolori getting from Sierra Leone? And how much is Sierra Leone getting from Bolori? Those are things I think should be out there in the public domain. We need to know.
Okay.
There are things they can do at the borders, at the checkpoints, to protect those who are bringing in goods. They're having a hard time. I think a plan can be put in place for cold storage. There are many things they can do.
Right.
A market has been built and has been sitting idle now for almost 3 years. And the market women are on the streets raising their kids, trying to sell. There are things that should be done, and the government is able to fix those problems right now.
All right.
For the market people and for us who have to purchase.
All right. Mr. Minister?
Well, there are a couple of things which government has done with regards to what's happening at the port, even with some of the charges. I mean, we met Bolori, we met Nectar, and there are a couple of things which they always mention. Oh, some of these charges were even put into the agreements when they did the agreement with the previous government. What we've tried to do is review all of those charges, and you can see that it's really coming down, and a lot is being done better now at the port than it used to be. I mean, look at what we did with cement. To clear a metric ton of cement by then was $12. When we came, we've been able to push it down. We're going to continue pushing it down. It's now around $8.60. So you see, the government has been progressive. We've been looking at some of those challenges. We also pay attention to the investment which some of these companies have made and some of the improvement they've done with port handling. But there are a lot more. We're going to continue pushing them on to see how we improve on those things. And there's broader government collaboration around some of these key issues which have been highlighted. Some of them could not be changed overnight, but you can see that we're trying. Take a look at what Femi just mentioned to see what we can support with SMEs. We have a project which is sponsored by the World Bank where we're supporting small and medium enterprises in agro-processing. And we have supported we're talking about now a total of close to 60 agro-processing SMEs that are actually looking at what they can do, for instance, paper to make pepper sauce, tomato to make tomato sauce, etc., etc. And a lot more is going on with the kind of support which we're giving to SMEs. But I think one thing that's very clear, and which nobody's going to deny, that COVID has caused a whole lot of damage. Femi is going to one day wake up to that, to know that if it had not been COVID, a lot would have been better now for the people of this country. I mean, it's COVID that's driving freight charges. It's COVID that has taken freight for a couple of commodities from as low as $20 to now $70, and there is no denial of that. It's COVID that has caused the freight charges and cost of certain commodities to spike. Look at when India shut down. Look at when China shut down. Most of the commodities we're actually using here are actually coming from there. And the whole idea, what do we do with manufacturing? You have seen, though it's baby step like Vanora tried to describe, but you can also see that these baby steps are actually adding up. And with the special economic zone policy which we're working on, once we're done with that, you're going to see a couple of those zones coming up. And we also have, I mean, a lot has changed, even with investor perception. You now have more investors coming in. I can tell you that for free. Right. A lot more investors coming in. Take a look at the beverage industry. I mean, you have King's Beverage. You have this other one that's called Kadat Beverage. We're now having two more. They have the general beverages, which is coming in, and the American beverages. All of those are actually going to address some of the issues. Okay. Take a look at what we're doing with even those who are producing agricultural produce. The support we're giving to the cocoa industry. The support we're giving to the palm oil industry. Look at what is happening with Sokfin and Goldtree. Look at what is happening even with alcohol production and starch production in Bombali. These are all the things which we're doing, and gradually, definitely, you not expect overnight to see everything just getting better. But I think with this kind of constructive engagement and the improvements that we're setting and the milestones, you're going to see definitely, like she was saying, building the structures from government to government. All of these structures are going to continue building up until we have our country getting better. And for us, the politicians, I think it's always good to have a genuine conversation. Take a look at, I mean, it's biting all of us. Yeah. Even me here, it's biting me. That I'm buying fuel 10,000 euros actually is biting me.
Right.
Because when you take a look
at enough.
I'm telling you the truth. But let me tell you this.
Quickly,
there is very little you can do when the international prices, some of these commodities are going up, when you as a country are not producing those commodities.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister of Trade and Industry. Thank you very much, Femi Claudio. Thank you very much, Valnoa Edwin. And many thanks to Abubakar Kamara from BAN, who was left due to another engagement. And that's all we have time for in tonight's program. Many thanks to our panelists for giving us their time. And to you, our lovely audience, a repeat of this program comes up on a Thursday at 10 p.m. Thank you for staying with us and participating in the program. Be sure to catch a fresh edition next week, same time here on your home of all things credible, factual, and all times balanced news, AYV. My name is Samuel Wise Bangu, and the show has been AYV on Sunday. Many thanks.